What is the worst place you had sex? I lived in Australia for a bit and our studio had this black pleather couch. It looked exactly like that casting couch meme, so we tried it for fun once. My ex sweats a lot even when it's not 40°C out, but it was, and we stuck to the couch like glue. On a hike in a wildlife refuge, we went off the trail to a more remote area. Was all fun and games till I got stung on the dick. Was after the event had ended when I was briefly exposed. The little bastard went right at me. We joke about it regularly. I'd say it comes up monthly. Just out of the blue she will say, "Hey, remember when you got stung on your penis?" Yes, I remember and will never forget. Runner-up is a movie theater. I got caught in the backseat of my car at the movie theater once. These two dudes knock on the windows on each side of the car. Apparently some family noticed us. We drove off. She's all like, "I am never going back there again." I was like, "What? We're going back there in a few minutes. I already bought the tickets." So we went back like 10-15 minutes later and walked in. The two guys were standing there to the side and they totally knew it was us walking back in. I was just laughing. I wish I could remember what movie we were seeing, 'cause that would totally date the situation. Hell, I bet I could get a general guess if I look up movies from around that specific time span. I could probably narrow it to 8 months or so. Let's see. I think some of the few possibilities would be Napoleon Dynamite, Troy, or Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. A treehouse that was actually a plywood shack on 6 stilts. It was pretty old and the plywood was splintery, so he laid down an old towel for me, you know, like a gentleman. Also, it was too small for me to fit in any direction, so my head stuck out the door. I stared at the sky and just waited for him to be done. And that's the story of how I lost my virginity. A close second would be the bed in his semi-abandoned house full of the semi-abandoned hoarded belongings of his mother. But that's a different story. Met a girl online and we tried to do it at the park. A cop showed up before we started and told us we had to leave. We went back to our cars, which was at a small shopping mall. We went behind the shopping mall and got it on behind a dumpster. It worked out well, so we met up there again a week later, except that time, as we were walking away, a dump truck picked the dumpster to empty the trash. Was hilarious at the time but frightening looking back on it. This was about 10 years ago. I'm not sure if this counts because we didn't get very far, but in a Burger King parking lot. I was like 15 and we both had very involved parents. He had a car, so we would park it someplace and hook up in the tiny little 2-seater. I was sitting astride him and most of my clothes were off when he froze. I looked over my shoulder and the once abandoned parking lot was abandoned no more. A family of 4 were just staring at us through the windshield. We didn't know what to do, so I just put my shirt back on and we drove away. Edit. So apparently the fact that he had a car makes everyone assume this dude was way older than me. He was a grade ahead of me. His car was as old as he was and barely ran. He'd gotten it when he turned 16. I was not hooking up with a middle-aged man. We were both under 18. Once in a, only nearly, empty train carriage, just sat on his lap facing him in a high-top dress. All fun and games until you pull into a station and there's a crowd of people on the platform looking directly at you through the window. TBF, me and this particular XBF were savages. We'd do it anywhere. Once in what we thought was an empty hotel ornamental gardens. We realized after that some dude was watching us from his balcony with a glass of wine and a cigarette. My childhood house had an enclosed porch that was level with my parents' bedroom window. It's hard to explain. You couldn't see into the porch from the window, but if the porch windows were open and the bedroom windows were open, you could hear everything from either room. So my now husband and I were trying to have sex in that porch, having opened the windows 'cause it was hot AF. My parents usually never opened their window and it was past 10, when they usually went to sleep. We weren't trying to be loud, but apparently we were. After we were done, I checked my phone and I had 5 missed calls and a text from my mother saying we can hear everything and please at least use a condom. We didn't acknowledge it at the time, but my mom got drunk a few years ago and told my aunt the story and said she was worried she was hearing the conception of her grandchild. When I was 16, I snuck my boyfriend into my room late at night one time. We have sex and then I sneak him back out. The next day my dad angrily confronts me and says my boyfriend is never allowed back. When I asked why, he angrily shouts, "I heard the whole damn thing last night." He didn't even know I was having sex. I was so completely mortified. That was not something I wanted my dad to know or ever find out anyway. As far as he knew, I was going to be a virgin until my wedding night, and that's how I wanted it with him. I'm 35 years old and I still feel embarrassed when I think about it. Hanoi, Vietnam. I was backpacking and sleeping in dorms. The dorm room had 8 beds. 6 of those beds were filled with my friends. One was a stranger, come back from a night clubbing with an absolutely stunning but trashy British girl. As we get in the room, all my friends start cheering me as I climb the ladder to my bunk. The only privacy was this curtain, so you could still hear everything. I was having trouble performing as it is, and then this German guy shouts, "Hey, can you not do this here?" To which the lovely Brit responds, "If you were inside me you wouldn't be saying that, would ya?" Needless to say, it was a horrible experience. Neither of us orgasmed. I will not be googling that spider. My ex was from a family of hoarders. This was late high school, early college, so he was still living with them. He slept on a futon mattress on the floor and you had to jump from the doorway to the mattress. There was nowhere to step in between. On top of literal piles of garbage and clothes, he kept his used dishes right next to the mattress. I think I'm a germaphobe now, some 12 years later, as a direct result. Anyway, we were starting to get frisky and I was mostly naked when I started to feel a little tickle on my butt. I tried to ignore it but it didn't go away, so I looked down just in time to watch a spider crawl up from between my legs, across my puss, and onto my stomach. I screamed and smacked it until it died, but it killed the mood, to say the least. Edit. I was 16 and I was made of hormones. I would never do this now. I know it was gross. Edit 2. Thank you for the Huntsman spider fun facts. I do not require any more. I have been in your shoes. Almost exactly the same setup, except we were in the next room over, where there was a stand-up freezer next to this little extra bed for guests. I guess it got a little loud. The next morning, my girlfriend's father, now my father-in-law, starts making all of these smart-ass comments, in a funny, but this isn't cool, I am going to rip your head off kind of way, about how we slept last night, if we were comfy, was it too cold, stop banging my daughter in the room next to mine. Yeah, it was really awkward and embarrassing. Edit. Damn, I was just thinking, and this happened 20 years ago, still with that special woman today. Smile. Edit number 2. Thank you for the award, kind stranger. I don't know if I ever received one before, so I really appreciate your kindness. There's this one time during which my ex and I both got really horny in the middle of the countryside. We headed for a small forest, took a quick walk in it and did the deed in a small clearing. Sex was good, but while putting my clothes back on, I spotted this camo-painted hunting camera. That's triggered by movement. It was of course pointing at us the whole time. Let's just say that this poor guy lost his footage. In the woods, with about 50 young bulls that were very interested in everything that was going on, we sneaked in and out of that field about 3 times to try and shake them off, but as soon as you make a sound, they all come running over to watch. With no concept of personal space, we ended up making a barrier out of branches to try and hold them off, but the fuckers just broke right through it in seconds. It was like Shaun of the Dead, but the zombies only want to lick you instead of eat you. Have you ever been licked by a bull? It feels like someone stroking your back with a fish dipped in egg whites. I would say I'm never doing that again, but we went back probably 7 or 8 times. Luckily the cows were always distracted by some sheep in the next field. This is one of the many joys of having parents that don't knock before entering a room. Believe me, if I could not fuck in front of a mooing audience, I would. Edit. Just to clarify, the bulls were spectators, not participants, despite how hard they tried. Edit again. Thanks to you /con_fan for an accurate depiction of the event. https://www.reddit.com/r/animals being bros/comments/u2u9 and/edit again. It was in the middle of the day, yeah, but we went there one evening too, and the secondary conference room of our office. It was mostly unused and we had been fooling around back there sometimes. But this time we were going at it fully engaged in the act. While that part was great, walking out of the room to find our super conservative CEO/owner sitting very near the door, where he would never be sitting usually, and immediately knowing we'd been caught, was pretty fucking awkward. Thankfully no one walked in. So even though it became a whole ordeal with HR, I was at least spared that trauma. I'm not sure I could have ever spoken to the man again if he'd walked in on me fucking someone from behind on his conference table. The back of a Daewoo hatchback outside of an apartment complex in Nevada in 2000. I wanted to say something moderately clever, like a Mallrats reference, about somewhere uncomfortable like the back of a Volkswagen, and the Daewoo memory hit me hard. My friend and I drove to Vegas from Michigan and stayed with some girls he knew that moved there. One had a boyfriend, who I lovingly referred to as Jack Bastard, and she was pretty open to cheating on him in the back of his car. Not my proudest or most ethical encounter. Upside, she took me to Del Taco afterwards. I dated this girl in high school. Her aunt and uncle let us use their pool whenever we wanted, as their house was massive and they wouldn't even be able to tell we were there. Anyway, this girl was trying to get it on in their pool while her uncle was home. He trained with a certain UFC fighter that I will not mention, and I went along with it. Anyways, he saw and confronted us one night at a house party of his, telling me I don't approve while he shakes a margarita with his buffalo-sized arms. That has to be the worst place for me. Secluded classroom in my high school after all classes were over. Was smart enough to push a table against the door so the handle wouldn't turn, or give, or go down, or however you say it, in the middle of it. Here's someone trying to come in and fighting with such door handle. I just grab it and pull up as much as I can and hold, while both me and my then girlfriend, both half naked, are scared as shit. After what feels like 5 minutes, but is probably no longer than 30 seconds, the person on the other side of the door lets go. I look through the keyhole and it's one of the cleaning people, a woman. She walks all the way out that hallway. I said the classroom was secluded, and turns left. As soon as I see her disappear, I tell my GF we have to make a run for it. So we pull our pants up and quickly walk down the hall, turn right, go round the big hole with ramps in the middle of the school, down the ramp, and out of there. It was one of the scariest, heart rate rising wise experiences of my life. To top it all off, she was an exchange student, so I guess she must have been 10 times more scared than I was. First floor fully carpeted apartment corner unit at the bottom of a hill. Heavy rain flooded the area. Humid weather. Put on a wait list for maintenance to address. Several days pass. Apartment smells rank as fuck. Possible mold under carpet. Hottie from work shoots a text out of the blue saying she's been drinking with friends and wants to give me the good suck at my place. Time sensitive. One-time deal. Immediate response required. Tell her to haul her ass over. Best head I ever received. Smashed over soggy carpet. Possible long-term health effects due to mold. When I was younger and doing the whole dating thing, I met this girl on Plenty of Fish. This was back when urban exploring was just becoming a thing and neither of us had ever done anything like that, so our first date was to go explore this old abandoned prison-type place. The place was deserted, no one else around. Things were going really well, we were vibing and she pulled out some handcuffs and wanted to do stuff right there. I'm very much a try anything once kind of guy, but let me tell you, I wouldn't do that again. I used to be a kindergarten teacher in Thailand at a big international school. At night, my class was unlocked and I could go in any time. Foreign teachers lived on campus. I met an American girl on Tinder and then she said she wanted to see my class. Took her to my classroom and showed her around. Ended up doing the deed on my desk. She squirted all over the ground. I couldn't find any paper towels so I cleaned it up using papers instead. But the class smelled like sex. Next morning, I'm at work and some of my kids are sitting on that spot with the vagina juice on it. It was awful. Thankfully I was leaving Thailand the next week, but it's such a weird memory. In an old barn, there were ladders that brought you up to these second-story platforms along the walls. Floor was covered in hay. Woke up the next morning with some gnarly scratches, itches, and rashes. Would do it again though. Was staying at a friend's cottage. They were in the process of adding a room onto the house above the garage. But a long process indeed. One of those jobs you start but just never seem to totally finish. The room was effectively storage at the time, but also had a bed in it. I was making love to a moderately lucky lady when lo and behold the fucking floor gives out. Unfortunately this isn't a cartoon and we didn't land peacefully on the bed. Instead we lay naked in agony on the cold concrete. I'd shattered my arm and fractured my patella. Kneecap. She made it out with some gnarly bruises and scratches but nothing too serious. Thanked me for switching positions not long beforehand. Would potentially do it again though. Two places I'm thinking of, but I'll go with the one in the roof. So we were like in a cottage-like house and felt like doing it in public but not to be able of getting caught actually. There were many people around because of the nightclubs but still we were safe. So that was a bad place because after 1 minute of penetration I started feeling my leg funny. Even itchy. I kept on and suddenly all this itchy annoying thing multiples. At this point we stopped same time and we turned on the flash of cell phone only to see thousands and thousands ants walking around or by and of course many of them were walking on our legs. I think that was the first time I willingly interrupted an intercourse. So a common lubricant is coconut oil. Actually, if it's common. But it was recommended to me by a few people and we tried it for a while. We had a jar of it that we kept by the bed. One day we were getting started and I went to grab the jar. I guess we hadn't closed it all the way last time, because I opened it sort of absent-mindedly before looking down. The jar was full of sugar ants, and they came pouring out of the jar onto the bed and floor. Much to my husband's chagrin, I refer to the incident as the Ant Menace. Took me a while to remember this one since I hated it so much. I had sex with this guy simping for me for years. The outside of his house looked very nice. So did the upstairs, and the mid-floor and here's how the rest of my thoughts went. Wait, we're going downstairs, in the basement. Oh wait, this is your stepdad's house. Wait, this is a storage room not a basement. Hold up, your room is parts of 2x4s nailed to the ceiling with no drywall. Why is there no electricity except your computer? Whatever, let's fuck. He ended up using his girlfriend's vibrators on me. I didn't know he had a girlfriend until afterwards. My wife and I have been together for 12 years now. When we were around 17-18 years old, we both were living respectively at our parents' houses. Both of our parents didn't want any closed doors or hear any funny business and we were very, very horny teenagers. We came with this genius idea when it was time to say goodbye at the end of the evening. We would both be walking to the shed where my bike was located and talk there. So, you guessed it, we had sex in the shed probably over 20 times and honestly probably more. It was all fun and games until the odor of gasoline from the lawnmower started to give me a boner. We did it at her brother's house, in their kids' room. There were crayon scribbles all over the walls, a bunch of toys laying around, and the beds were these two tiny mattresses laying on the floor. The car ride there was extremely quiet and awkward because her brother was taking us. He knew as this was planned. The worst part was that it was my first time and it came in like 10 seconds. We waited around in an awkward silence for probably 20 minutes until I was recharged enough to try again for another 10 minutes. The second time I came it was partially inside her, and she was definitely concerned despite being on BC. She definitely did not come but my almost asked her if she did. Then to end it all, we get picked up by her brother's entire family, his wife and 2 kids. Most awkward car ride of my life. My experience definitely scarred me. She never seemed interested in sex again after that, so I was never given the chance to redeem myself. It hurt my already low confidence, and I don't know if I'll ever find another partner who is as fun and attractive as she was. I'm not ugly by any means, but it's been a couple of years since I've been in any kind of relationship, and sexual desire aside, I desperately miss having that person to talk to about anything, rub their hands through your hair, and all other sorts of little things. I'm so touch-starved that hurts. Lonely too.